pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, we would like to just let you know that we have had some internet issues. Today has been out for a couple of hours within Town Hall. So if there is a kind of a break in the meeting, we have some alternate hotspots that we will try to immediately hook back up to. Just give us a little bit of time and a little bit of patience with understanding that it's not, all the kinks are not worked out with that, but we're trying. At this time, we will move to adopting the agenda.
Mayor and Board, I move that we adopt the agenda in its current form.
I'll second that.
Any questions? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? Motion passes. We will move to citizen comments.
Mayor, members of the board, received one written set of comments from Nadine Cherry, 410 West Garden Street, and I'll quote from her written document. I noticed on the agenda for this month that the board is going to meet later this month for a budget workshop where we will go into detail on where we are financially. This was from Diane Seaford, Finance Officer. Once again, I stand firm on my thoughts being against this being handled this way. No citizens being allowed in this meeting. We will have to hold a public hearing on this before the fiscal year ends. New paragraph. I am totally against the police department receiving a new vehicle, paren, truck, close paren. New paragraph. Another thing I would like to mention, I am hoping that with the Easter egg hunt to be held at the Passive Park, that everything is going ADA compliant, including the car show that is to be held uptown next month. Mayor Smith, you stated last year, I believe, there would be an ADA committee, but you had it at the end of the list. Why? You have seen the paperwork from USDA stating what the town of Landis is required to do to the fact the town has received federal finance assistance.
Is that all the comments? Thank you. We will move to consider to adopt the minutes from January 11th meeting. Have a motion?
Move we consider adopting the minutes from the January 11th meeting.
Second that.
Have a second. Any discussion?
No.
I do have a couple questions from the meeting last month. In item number 13A, the report, has it been submitted to the LGC as far as the current the audit? Okay, and then in 13B, have bids gone out for the North Chapel Street lift station?
I'm sorry, what was it?
The audit has been, actually, it was approved today by the LGC. It's been submitted and approved, and your auditors will be here tonight to go over the details of that with you. As far as the North Chapel lift station, those bids were being let by
Municipal. The gentleman is here tonight to talk about
Okay,
that.
Okay. And then also, just to make sure, has the property already been, the deal already been completed with the property and the tree being removed and all that? That's already been
Yes.
taken
Yeah,
care
the
of?
tree was removed a few weeks ago. The attorney has drawn the deed. The gentleman, I called the gentleman last week. He was out of town. He is to go by the attorney's office this week, so
Yep.
we got plenty of time, I think, until the grant's awarded, but
Okay.
I think everything is in order.
Okay.
Mayor, this says adopting minutes for the January 11. Shouldn't it be February 1
It
meeting?
should.
Okay. All right.
It should. When I said that, I thought, that's not right.
Yeah, I seen that. I've seen this. Yeah.
Normally you always pick some names over there.
I know.
So,
I'll
making
take
sure.
care of it. Names is good.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
No more discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
at this time, we will skip number 7 until they can get here, and we will move to number 8.
Mayor, members of the board, during 2017, the town of Landis received a $150,000 grant from the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, Division of Water Infrastructure. The intent of the grant was to help municipalities improve their overall water and wastewater operations through several measures. Establishing a GIS database of our utility system is one such example. The board selected municipal engineering out of Raleigh to fulfill the duties of that grant. And Gary Flowers, the lead engineer on the project, is here to present the executive summary to the town meeting tonight, and also talk to you about the project that's forthcoming. And he does have a little dog and pony show. So.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Barefoot. For those of you all who have not met me before, I'm Gary Flowers with Municipal Engineering Services in Raleigh. I've actually got somewhat of a history with the town of Landis. I worked for a company, Pearson and Whitman, back in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, and we did quite a bit of work at that time for the town of Landis. I also worked for Earth Tech with Mike Aquesta, which many of you probably know. And then I had about a 12-year gap, and I'm back at Municipal Engineering, and I've taken over a lot of Mike Aquesta's projects in his retirement, and Landis being one of them. But tonight I'm here to get to your question about the bids for the Chapel Street and the 4th Street lift stations. Those bids are out on the street now. We've actually got, I think, about 4 or 5 contractors that have ordered plans. We plan to open bids 2 weeks from this coming Thursday at 2 o'clock in here. And then hopefully we'll get some good competitive bid prices. We've been seeing a lot of good bid pricing lately because everybody's wanting work, which is a good thing. But I'm here tonight to just sort of do the closeout meeting for the Water System Asset Inventory and Assessment Grant Program. I did a similar one here about a year ago for the Sewer Asset and Inventory Assessment Program. And tonight, I've got just a little PowerPoint presentation, and I don't know if you got a copy of the executive summary, but this is just a little bit of visuals just to let you know what you're getting for your money. Okay, as Mr. Barefoot had mentioned, the AIA program was established to encourage municipalities to become viable and more proactive in the management of their water and wastewater systems. And the grants provide funding for various different programs, condition assessments, water system hydraulic modeling, condition assessments. GIS mapping is a big proponent for a lot of small towns because they usually don't have the funds to be able to afford that sort of thing. And it's administered by the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, Division of Water Infrastructure. And like Mr. Barefoot said, you were offered a $150,000 grant. You had a 5% match. And you got $150,000 each for the sewer and also the water AIA. Okay, here's just a task summary of what we were doing. We were updating the water system, GIS database and mapping. And your water system, I think when Mike Aquesta was overseeing it, maybe perhaps at Earth Tech, you had your water system mapped. But part of a GIS mapping system, a good system, is your database, which has a lot of your information like the size and type of material of your water lines, the number of valves and the type of valves you have, any above ground features you have like fire hydrants. And then you can also assign a condition assessment and also an estimated age to this. And that's all in your database. So when someone brings up your water system map, they can use their mouse, they can click on a line or a water valve, and that just brings up all sorts of information on that particular item. And in doing that, since you already had somewhat of a GIS database and mapping system, we got with Chris Ritchie and looked at some of your existing maps, your old paper maps, And it was just sort of a way to confirm what the guys had out in the field, because unlike sewer line where you can open a manhole and you can visually see into it and you can see the pipe material and you can measure the size, water lines you can't do that. So you have to rely on personnel information and old historic maps, and also the physical field survey to gather all that data. And here is the finished product. This is an overall system of your water distribution map. It's color-coded by your pipe diameter. And it's also been sealed by Olgus Murphy, who's our registered land surveyor. The surveying people with the state licensing board are getting pretty strict about making sure the GIS is done in a thoughtful and a legal manner, and signed by a registered land surveyor. And in addition to the overall map, we have given Chris a couple of map books, and these are 11 by 17 books. You have an index map over here, and then of course over here is a large. You have a page for each square on that index, so your field crews can pull these out. They can visually look at them. It's also possible to upload this stuff onto a tablet, laptop, desktop. You can do it on a phone, anything where you have the capacity to store such a document. But it's a great thing to have. Your fire department can have access to this. A lot of these things where you have fire hydrants, you can click. They could click on the fire hydrant and they could see what the last recorded flow was from the last test. And if for some reason they decided they needed more flow from a different hydrant, then they can sort of check around and look and sort of plan how they're going to put out the fire, and by seeing what kind of capacity they have in the water system. The reader that Seth Jarrett, our GIS coordinator in our Boone office, it's ArcGIS, which is it's very expensive software to have. And it's not very user-friendly. It takes a lot of training to learn how to navigate around it. But there's an ARC reader which was free to the town. And basically, you can't change anything in the document, but you can access all the information that's there. Click on it, and you get all sorts of information. Okay. Initially, when we started planning our task with the town had some issues with some water leaks, some of the old cast iron pipes, particularly up on Mount Moriah Church Road and down Ryder Street, and then back over on the other side of the railroad tracks around Chapel Street, Rice Street, Ryder. And we have in-house leak detection. It's an acoustic thing. They hook up a pinger to a fire hydrant, and basically they put on headphones. They walk across the water line, and whenever a leak's detected, it makes a little bit different noise. Okay. Unfortunately, we did about 3 miles of old cast iron pipe, and we only found just a couple of leaks. And this was a pretty big portion of the water condition assessment, pretty big expenditure in the funding available for that task. So we talked with Chris and Chris Ritchie and decided that we didn't want to spend the rest of this money looking for leaks that may not be there, based on what we had found today, because we were supposedly looking at some of the worst areas. So, like I say, we did about 2/3 of the project, which was 10,000, almost 11,000 feet, and we only found just a couple of leaks. So at that point, we looked around at some things that we could provide that might be more beneficial than spending this money, and that was to do a water system hydraulic model, and I'll explain that in just a second. Anyway, here was the map with the circles you hear is up on Mount Moriah Church Road, which was about a 3,000-foot section. Here we have some on Ryder. I think we have some here on Chapel Street, and then some more on Chapel Street down here. But like I say, it was not trending that we were finding a lot of stuff, so we just felt like it was a poor way to spend that money. And here we're just, this was just one of the 2 leaks we found. these are the leak detection forms that we use out in the field. The other component, and the other thing, the item that we worked on was preparing an asset management plan. We didn't do it for the sewer system, so I decided to incorporate the sewer system asset management plan into the water and sewer asset management plan, and it was paid for under the water AI grant. And anyway, the asset management plan is basically it's a long-term planning and guidance document. It sort of describes how you'll plan to manage your assets, your inventory and infrastructure assets. And it's a very effective tool if you use it. It should be a living document, not something that you put on the shelf to collect dust. But you can use it as a tool to combine your technical, your management, your financial components of your city organization to look at targeting future repairs, how to come up with the money to finance it, and how to plan for it. And again, there's 4 key areas to all asset management plans to meet the state's criteria. One, you have to have an inventory of your water and sewer assets, including maps. We have both that for the water and sewer systems. An asset of the condition of an assessment of the condition of the assets in the inventory, and we've done that with both the water and sewer infrastructure in the database. You'll see in the asset management plan for each water and sewer, there's an estimated age and there's an estimated condition. And short of putting a video camera down into a sewer, we just assume that clay pipe is over 40 years old. It qualifies to be replaced using state funds. And because it's 40 years old and because of the experience that we see in clay pipes, most every clay pipe is tagged as being in poor condition and over 40 years old. So people just have not used it for a long time. So PVC pipe is good condition. Cast iron and ductile iron, we sort of put that in the fair range because those pipe materials have been in the ground for probably about 30 years. Where, like I say, PVC and plastic pipe, not so long. And PVC is pretty impervious to most everything except for industrial chemicals, and you don't have any kind of industrial discharge in town. The other one is a capital improvement plan. It's a 10-year capital improvement plan. And basically, I got with Chris Ritchie, and we identified some past projects that the town had wanted to do but didn't get done.
Can you speak into the mic just a
I'm
little
sorry.
bit? I'm sorry. The people, our citizens can't hear you.
No,
Sorry.
that's fine. I apologize. But the 10-year capital improvement plan, basically we selected some projects. I think one of them was the USDA waterline project that never happened. An additional elevated tank, a new interconnection with Kannapolis, and then some repair projects throughout town. I know we did the entire South Upright Street sewer basin, but we were only able to repair a portion of that with the grant that we have now from the state. So repairing the remainder of that would also be a capital improvement project for sometime in the next 10 years. And it's nothing that's written in stone, but it's just a planning document that sort of gets you started thinking about specific projects that you need to start considering in a 10-year time frame. And then the last component is an operation and maintenance plan from your water and sewer department. And I've worked with Chris Ritchie on this. It's basically just a written document explaining just what your routine water and sewer maintenance items are, such as how often, what percent you change out your meters a year, how often you check your sewer lift stations, and that sort of thing. And it's just it's a guidance document on your O&M. Okay, just briefly, the 10-year capital improvement plan, I've already explained to you what it was for, and that we identified some projects, and some of them were the result of the sewer condition assessment that we did with the sewer AIA grant program back in 2018. And this is inside the asset management plan document that I've given to Mr. Barefoot. You've got 2 hard copies of that. That includes the asset management plan. It includes the capital improvement plan. It includes your asset inventory of your water and sewer systems. It includes your O&M plan, and then it has some documents in the back. It's got a copy of your current fiscal year budget, your 2019 local water supply plan, and there's also a there's also a DVD in the back that has the hydraulic modeling data that we compiled when we did your hydraulic model. But anyway, the top is water projects, and the bottom are some of your sewer projects. These are just recommendations. But like I say, in order to get state funding, if you have a 10-year capital improvement plan, you get 2 points. And if you have an asset management plan that you've adopted, and it meets the state guidelines, those are 10 priority points. It doesn't sound like a lot, but the maximum number of points are 100. So you can get over 10% of your points just from having this one document here. And as I said, we sort of backed up on the leak assessment and decided to construct a hydraulic water model of your system. Basically, a hydraulic model is we basically take all of our GIS mapping information, we input it into a program called Water Gems, and we can create a model of your water system, which basically you can use that for a lot of different things. You can see how your tanks are operating. If you have an industry that wanted to come to town that was going to be a big water user, you could input that demand and also see how that affects your stored water. You can also use it if you have a subdivision coming out that wants to hook on to the town. You can use that you can input all of that demand, and it'll produce a lot of great information, like what size line those folks may need to hook up to the town in order that they get the water that they need. And it also, you can look at, like I say, you can look at the demand, what you're buying from Kannapolis, what you're using today on a daily basis, and then you can put this new demand in and see how that affects your tank. It may show that, you're going to have a big drag on your water tank, and so you may need to start looking at a new tank elsewhere. The other thing which is beneficial to the fire department is all of the every 5 years, your fire department usually has to certify to the state fire marshal that all of its hydrants have been tested. Well, if you've got a calibrated hydraulic model and we've got all of your fire hydrant information in the system anyway, all we have to do instead of your fire department having to go out and tap all these hydrants and test all of your hydrants every 5 years, as long as your water model is calibrated and it's signed off on by an engineer, you can just produce that data and save your fire department a lot of money and a lot of time. So it's a very useful tool. It's a very powerful tool, and it can, there's lots of things it can be used for. I'm just kind of touching on just some of the things that Landis may be wanting to use it for. And that's a service that we'll provide for free going on into the future. I mean, we've got the software to do the modeling. You just tell us, what's happening. If you've got, like I say, if you've got a business coming into town or a large user, you can tell us. We'll do the thing, and we'll just let you. We'll do that service for free. I mean, that's part of the long term, because obviously it takes a highly qualified person to operate these hydraulic models. But that's a service we do. Oops. Here's just a little bit of a graph of what's happening with your tank based on your current demand. It's easy to follow. This is basically your tank. Your tank is full up here. Okay, at 2 o'clock in the morning, you've got very little demand. Okay. As you get towards morning and people start waking up around 6, 7 o'clock, start using water, they start pulling off your tank. So as the day goes on and people are using water, it sort of stays. But then as you get again in the afternoon, when people start doing a lot of other water usage, you see that your tank goes down, your water demand goes up, And then, of course, by the end of the day, and at 12 o'clock at night, after people have quit using water, then your tanks go back up. So that's just a very simple model, but you can input all sorts of data into this thing and figure out what your tank's are doing. So the great thing about the water model is you've got the tools to make sure you don't do something like just bring in some big industry that's going to use a lot of water, and then all of a sudden they start using water, and you find out people on the other side of town, their faucets are dripping. They've got no water pressure. So it's a very powerful tool. And here's just a wrap up of the budget for your $150,000. $16,500, that's for project management over 48 months. Sorry. The GIS mapping updates were a little less than $9,000. The leak detection and condition assessment, we spent $18,000, but I think we had almost $90,000 for that one task. The 10-year capital improvement plan was $9,800. The water and sewer asset management plan, $18,800. And then the water system hydraulic model was $72,800. And then the grant and funding administration on our part was $5,000. So that's the $150,000 total. Okay, the project deliverables were the updated water system maps, which you all have. The leak report forms, all of those are on a USB drive. There's 2 copies of the USB drive inside the asset management plan. The water and sewer system asset management plan, which includes the capital improvement plan and the O&M plan. There are 2 bound copies, and everything is also on the USB drives. And the very last thing is the DVR with the modeling data from the water system hydraulic model. Okay. What does this all mean for you? Well, as I say, you've already done condition assessments on your sewer, so you have documentation of a problem. State loves documentation. You know, every small town can come up and say, well, we've got old sewers. Well, if you've got pictures, videos, photographs to back that up, then you're going to get the points, and the people that are just talking are not. These things like this, asset management plan shows the state that you're being proactive about your system, so they award you points for that. And they have funding applications twice a year. There's one coming up in the spring, and then there's one coming up in the fall. Generally, the spring does not have as much grant money because most of that was spent in the fall, and most of the state grant money is money that's appropriated by the General Assembly. And they usually do that in the summer as they're coming up on the beginning of their fiscal year. Okay. And the town of Landis, because of your, there's 5 financial indicators with the state, and pretty much you all meet all 5 of those indicators, which qualifies you for a 100% grant. Doesn't mean you'll always get a 100% grant, but you do qualify for it. So I would recommend that you do start thinking about projects that you would like to get funded. And then, of course, part of our service that we provide to our clients is we do the applications free of charge. We hope if you get funded that you give us the work, but you know, a lot of it, if it's federal money, which is usually in the spring, that has to go out for procurement. If it's money, if it's state reserve money in the fall, you can just select us. But otherwise, you have to go through procurement if it's federal money. And you also qualify for 0% interest. So ideally, you would want to get state reserve money, which, you, like I say, is a 100% grant, which is your Chapel Street. That's all 100% grant. The rehab project we're working on now, there was not any state money for that, but you did get $500,000 in principal forgiveness with a $500,000 0% interest loan. And like I say, please review the asset management plan, look it over. If anybody has any questions, Mr. Barefoot has my number. I'll be glad to answer any questions anybody has. But I would recommend that sometime before the spring funding round, or at least the fall, depending on when you decide you would like to pursue any state funding, is to adopt the plan, formally adopt the plan and the capital improvement plan. And we'll review it with you. We'll help you with it. If you've got projects that are not currently in the CIP, we can go back and revise your CIP to include those projects, because the state won't consider your CIP for points unless the project is actually in the CIP. So as we develop projects, we want to make sure they're in there, and we want to make sure you adopt the asset management plan. All right, questions?
First, I'd like to thank you for your presentation. We appreciate that.
Sure,
I
glad
don't have any
to do it.
Any questions?
I will make one comment. Some weeks ago, Gary gave me the number for Seth Jarrett. He works out of the Boone office, and he was good enough to get me a digital copy online. So I have a digital copy with the ARC info reader, which is available to you all. And I've already made available a copy of it to the county's GIS person. And we actually had a meeting together with Franklin Gover over in China Grove about starting to do some GIS work here in China Grove and here, and using the county's database. And this is be an important part of it. So we're kind of moving forward with that.
Is it? Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
We appreciate it.
And I do have the two bound copies
Okay.
here for us. Yeah.
All right, at this time, we will ask for Rebecca Powell.
Yes,
No?
all of it.
Oh, sorry. I guess I don't have it, so we'll come back to you in a minute. At this time, we will consider a presentation from the fiscal year 2020 audit.
Good evening, Madam Mayor.
Hello, how are you?
Hold on one second. So, just wanted to introduce you. This year, as you know, we went with a different audit firm. And we have with us tonight the folks from Ann Craven's office. We'll start with Terry. Terry did a lot to help us with some of our financial statements and to do our auditing itself. She reports to Ann, and they work together as a team. We did get great news today. Our audit has been accepted by the LGC, so I'm sure they'll go into more detail but we did not get that notification until today, and so we will be receiving bound copies, but it was considered in draft state until we actually receive the approval from the LGC. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Diane.
I'm gonna ask that
As
you-
Diane's already told, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm gonna ask that you pull this mic down just so that we're on live YouTube right now. Our citizens are able to view us live with COVID and them not being able to be in our meetings. There is a camera right back there, and as long as the red light is on, we are live. And so we do have some citizens that do watch live, and the sound is kind of a little bit more muffled if it is live and not speaking directly into the mic. So I would ask that you do that.
Understandably.
Thank
I'm
you.
happy to do so. Thank you for letting me know. Again, let me say good evening to all of you. I want to introduce Ann Craven, CPA, her firm. She is the person's name you'll see on your reports and that kind of thing, and I am the helper here. It is important, I think, if I were in your place, I would want to know who was talking to me. So I got out of school as an adult in '89. I've got roughly 30 years. And somehow coming fresh out of accounting, was licensed then within 2 years in the very early '90s. I fell into nonprofit and governmental, which, as you know, are kinfolk, if not exactly brothers and sisters in the world of auditing and accounting. And worked for roughly 20 years and got out for a little while, went back and got my master's in a completely different field. And since then have been working, never stopped working, but enjoy some flexibility now in my schedule and working for folks like you and working with Ann. My role here tonight is to just give you a very brief general information session on how to read this stuff. Some of you may be well versed in how to read these 87, 88 pages. Our experience with municipal boards and that kind of thing is that that is not always the case. It helps us to refresh our own minds why we have to do what we have to do, and let you know how to maybe find something you might be looking for. Now, what you're looking for right off the bat is a clean opinion, and you've got that. On the very first letter, Ann's letterhead is a clean opinion that says, in our opinion, these financial statements represent, in all material aspects, good stuff. There were no findings. If you look at the back of the statements in the last few pages, there are no findings that relate to your internal controls. Some of you may be aware this has not always been the case in years past, that your auditors have found some things that have to do with internal control, perhaps not reviewing closely expenditures, allowing expenditures to go through that don't meet the criteria for a particular pot of money that you were spending from, whatever the case may be. There have been findings in the past. If you look on those pages on this report this year, there are no current year findings, and we found satisfaction, very deep, I will add, satisfaction that those problems have been corrected, and that is in no small part to Diane's hard efforts and to Pam's efforts to what we just say, clean things up, to your interim manager's efforts to oversee all of that and to get things headed in a good direction, and we're happy to be a part of that. So I don't want to belabor you with details. I don't want to waste your time. I do want to give you a very small, brief background in why this stuff looks like it does and why it looks like it's saying the same thing 14 different times in 14 different places. It's not, believe it or not. The best way to read this stuff is from the back. And before we start that, let me give you just just 3 acronyms I want you to remember. I want you to remember FASB, F-A-S-B. I want you to remember GASB, G-A-S-B. And I want you to remember GAAP, G-A-A-P. Acronyms for these 3 things. FASB is the Financial Accounting Standards Board. It's just what it says it is. It's a standards board that's made up of professionals people in the academy, people from large CPA firms that make the rules and regulations, that promulgate them, and are very, very, very contributory to what is known as GAAP, Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. There's other things that go into GAAP. The Securities Exchange Commission, for instance, has a hand in it. The international financial accounting people have a hand in it. But generally accepted accounting principles is just what it says it is. It's a body of rules and regulations and authoritative work that says this is how we expect to see financial information presented. And if you don't do it this way, you're out of compliance with GAAP. And somewhere down the line, somebody's not going to be happy about that. Either for us, it's the Local Government Commission, the LGC. If you're getting grant money, it's the people that oversee your grant. If you're getting federal money, it's people that oversee in that pot of money. So we have to stay in compliance with GAAP. Then the last acronym I gave you was GASB, and that stands for Governmental Accounting Standards Board. So you've got the Financial Accounting Standards Board that kind of oversees everything in the financial world. I'm making this very simple, a little bit more simple than it is in practice. And then you've got the Governmental Accounting Standards Board that does just what you think it might. It oversees, it regulates our world in governmental accounting, in state accounting, local government accounting, meaning counties, towns, quasi-governmental accounting entities such as housing authorities, standalone water treatment systems, standalone, I've already said housing authorities, but you get that picture. So these statements have to keep in mind those three bodies of rules. There's three separate kind of people we have to be sure we've got happy. Now there's one other thing I want to tell you in general conversation. There's two different ways to count money, okay? Two different ways to record assets for governmental entities, particularly local government, towns. One is called the modified accrual. The other's full accrual. And again, this is going to be a little bit of an oversimplification, but in a nutshell, you got cash. It's just what it says it is. You record everything on a cash basis. If you sent cash out, you record cash out and something came in. Either you paid a bill for it, you bought a piece of equipment for it, you paid somebody's salary with it. Cash out, something in. Okay, that's your offsetting entries. Modified accrual goes one step further. It takes into account things that you are legally liable for or you have an obligation to, even though cash may not yet have changed hands. For instance, water and sewer billings is the best example the town of Landis has. You've sold those services. You've sold that water. You've sold that power. Now your customers owe you. That gets booked, okay, even though the cash hadn't come in the door yet. Same way with salaries. Same way with accounts payable. Down here, wherever you get your vehicles fixed or serviced, I'm sure there's bills that you owe at June 30. The cash hadn't gone out the door yet, but you got to pay them, and it's related to an expense that happened before June 30. So at that cutoff date, you have payables, just like you do receivables. Again, a little bit of an oversimplification, but in a nutshell, that suits our purposes. That helps us understand, okay? That's modified accrual. That's not full accrual. Full accrual is every single financial transaction, everything that affects the town financially, either an obligation that it has, either a right that it has, either a commitment it has, a potential commitment it may have years down the road. That has to be booked. That has to be put on your numbers. Things such as buying equipment, borrowing money long term, your bonds, your general obligation bonds, your notes that you go in debt and sign. You have notes payable. Your fixed assets is the biggest thing. The latest thing that we have had to deal with is your pensions for your employees that are all part of the North Carolina Local Employees Retirement System. We have to record, based on actuarial numbers, a liability for the town that you're going to have one day as those employees begin to retire. Again, no money has gone out the door, but we have to record those things, and that's full accrual. Now, that matters only because some of these statements are on modified accrual and some are on full accrual. Okay? That matters only because some of these statements are on modified accrual and some are required to be reported on full accrual. From the get-go, at the end of the day, everything's required. Everything is required to be reported on full accrual. Okay? With that in mind, go to the back real quickly. Again, I'm not going to keep you. I'm just going to try to give you a roadmap, if you will. Jot down some notes and look at this when you can't sleep tonight. But if you go to the back, starting on page 68. You'll see the general fund, statement of revenues and expenditures and changes in fund balance. There it is. There's what your main general operating fund did for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2020. There's your revenues on page 68, and there's all of your expenditures by department on page 69. These are recorded on modified accrual basis, which basically, for the most part, is a cash basis. You took cash in, we reported an income. You paid cash out, we reported an expense, with the exception of things that are going to be solved, or resolved, I should say, within 30 to 60 days, such as payables, receivables, things like that. Same way with your stormwater fund, beginning on page 73. Same thing. Same way with your general capital projects fund on page 74. Modified accrual. GAAP. Okay, that's GAAP. Modified accrual for governmental funds. And governmental is a term, a proper term, that means not your enterprise funds. Your enterprise funds act like businesses. Your light fund, your sewer fund, your water fund, that GASB and GAAP treat those just like any other business. If any of you are business owners and you had to have an audit, there's certain way those numbers have to be presented. GAAP says there's certain ways these statements have to be presented, and it's just like any other business because the end goal for an enterprise fund is to make money, right? The end goal for your light fund is to make money for the town. The end goal for your sewer fund and water fund is to make money. It's a business. You're not going to sell water less than you buy it for. You're going to sell it for the cost of the water plus your overhead plus a little profit margin. It's just like any other business. So GAAP says they have to be reported in full accrual basis. You will notice at the top of these statements, beginning on 75, it says non-GAAP. That's because they're reported here in modified accrual. Okay? So you've got apples and apples for all funds in the back here. Everything's on the same basis. Got apples to apples. Okay? Keep that in mind. Move to the front. Your notes are self-explanatory. Those notes in the middle of the statements are there to tell you all the little details about all the numbers you see elsewhere in this package. Now if you move to the front of the notes and you start on page page 21, Exhibit 7. Exhibit 7 and page 21. Now those enterprise funds, the light fund, the water fund, the sewer fund, now they're on full modified accrual basis, and you don't see the words non-GAAP, because this is GAAP. This is generally accepted accounting principles. And it will include things that those back statements didn't. It will include a broader reach of receivables. It will include your capital assets, such as all of your infrastructure. It will include all of your note payables and the interest and the debt service. The interest is an expense. Your principal paid is not an expense on these statements. It's a reduction of your principal, okay? It's a reduction of what you owe. So that's why this is like it is. Then if you move to your balance sheet on your governmental funds, Exhibit 3, this is modified accrual because this is a governmental fund. This is your main operating fund, and there are things that matter here that don't matter in your enterprise fund. The state of North Carolina does not get involved in how much you've got in reserve in your sewer fund or your water fund and so forth and so on. It does get involved in if one fund's keeping up the other fund, as you may already be aware. But if you look at page 15, you will see where fund balance is listed at the bottom. You will see things like we have to restrict a certain amount of that fund balance because of a general statute. You just can't spend but so much of your fund balance, okay? Some of it has to be restricted. Some of it is restricted for streets. That's your POW bill money. That's designated money. It has to be spent for streets. That's your POW bill money. Park construction, same way. That was money that came in under a grant, part of money that was designated, and possibly other monies that was designated for your park construction, and so forth and so on. So this is considered GAAP, even though it's modified accrual. This is considered GAAP for the general fund and other governmental funds like stormwater. If you had other types of governmental funds, they'd be here as well. Then move to Exhibit 1 and 2. And Exhibit 1 and 2 puts everything, all your funds, all your numbers, everything on full accrual basis. Every piece of equipment, if it met your capitalization threshold, it's been recorded here. All of your debt is recorded here, regardless of which fund it's reported in. Every fund is now in Exhibit 1 and Exhibit 2 on full accrual. So it may look like you're looking at the same numbers in different places, and some of them are the same numbers, but these statements do intend to tell you different things, and each statement is going to tell you a little something different than the other statements. It's a lot of information. It's a lot to absorb. I get that. Ann's going to talk to you more about your wonderful clean opinion, about the LGC coming back to her today with no comments, nothing to tweak, nothing to repair. That's when Ann and I get to say hallelujah, and nothing we need to do to do anything small or big to your statement. She's going to talk more about that and some of the internal control issues. Is there anything I can answer at all?
No, thank you very much.
May I let the board know it's been a pleasure to work with Diane and Pam and Mr. Barefoot, and we greatly appreciate all of your cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I also am not going to keep you very long either, hopefully. But what I'm going to talk to you about today is Terry went through everything with you so you'll understand how to read these statements. What I'm going to try to get across to you is how much has changed over the past year. If you looked at these statements here, she told you about two different statements. What I call my net position statement, which is full accrual, and what I call my fund balance statements, which are modified accrual.
Get it a little bit closer if you don't mind.
To the mic.
Closer?
That's
Yeah.
perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, let's start with the ones where the government runs their business on the fund balance statements. You have available for spending 27.85% of your balance there. And generally speaking, what the LGC likes to see is somewhere around 40. So you've come up. But now let's figure out how much you've come up. Do you know what it was last year? 8.77%. That should make you feel good running this town. And it's getting better. As we went through the internal controls, you could see, starting out in July of 19 and start coming forward about October, you could see the trend moving upward and things getting so much better. We could find things easier. We could see the approvals easier. So that worked very well to your benefit. Also in these statements, well, let's talk about net position a little bit first. In the full accrual position, the available resources that you have to spend now are 23.24%. And you can see that's very close to your modified accrual. And that's improved from from about 11% last year to 23.24% this year. So things are getting better, and I think it is because of the overseeing that Diane has done with it, reducing the debt, not borrowing as much money, spending the money wisely that you have. If you look at the financial statements, there is in here a management and discussion letter. And and you can read these. The highlights of the management discussions tells you some of the things that she has done to try to improve things. Notes payable were decreased. They were paid off rather than keep extending them from just on and on and on. That caused those available balances to be better for you. You received a rebate from the electricities, which was $650,000. That helped tremendously. The other thing that has helped a lot is you've hired Pam to come in as a CPA and look at all these things to make sure that you're running the business in the right manner. All the accounts have been reconciled. When we looked at your bank reconciliations, there were checks still being unreconciled going back to about 2006 and 7. Pam has straightened that out and sent all of those things that were required to be sent to S-Cheat and taken care of that. They have your water and sewer are running very well now, particularly I think it's the water. Sewer's a little bit down, but I think it'll get better as you start to pay this debt down. Another thing that I see that Diane has done is a segregation of duties so that things can't happen like happened before and last year. If you have 3 different people that's looking at these statements and each one of them has to approve at a certain level, it can't go on where you can have this fraud going on. So that's some of the things that has happened there. I guess that's all I can say unless you have some questions for me. I just wanted to point out the 2 different statements, how they have improved, how they have stepped up, and to keep going in the right range to head toward that 40%. Do you have any questions for me? I know you haven't had a chance to look at these. We have. I could just about tell you what page a certain number is on. But I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have of what I have told you tonight. Any questions?
At this time, I don't have any questions. Any board members?
Not at this time. If so, we'll direct them to Mr. Barefoot and
Yeah. he can
get
give
those
it to you.
answered.
Yeah, everything is going in the right direction.
Nice homework.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. We appreciate you coming in tonight and spending some time with us and confirming for us that we are headed in the right direction. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. And thank you, Terry. We appreciate it. No. You want to move to Rebecca? Rebecca. All right, at this time, we will move to number 10
Okay.
and invite Rebecca Powell up to the podium.
While Rebecca is making her way to the podium, Mayor, members of the board, I'd like to a little bit of background or information about Rebecca, and I'm very pleased to introduce her. She's our new revenue and billing supervisor. She's here to brief the board on and our customers on the pending launch of a new utility customer portal, and also to answer any questions you all may have regarding how far we've come. She came on board in mid-December, and in a very, very short period of time, she's really gotten a grasp on a number of important issues within the utility department. And certainly the launch of the long-anticipated customer portal is one of those issues. It's my understanding that this was discussed as far back as 2017, and as far back as 2017, and with her help and skills, she'll share with you a launch date, which I think is coming up very, very quickly.
All right. Welcome.
Hi. Can you all hear me up there?
We can, but the louder you speak, the better it would be.
No problem. I've got a mom voice. I can do it. Okay. So all of you, I gave out a blue packet that looks like this,
Yes.
and I apologize for not having PowerPoint, but I didn't have something I could move that direction. As Mr. Barefoot stated, I started back in December and learned as quickly as I could. Had a lot of help along the way from everybody here at Town Hall, including Libby and Diane. Thank them very much for every step of that process. I was blessed and lucky because when I started, I did not start with the old systems. I don't have the background to say I missed this or I missed that. I started with the launch of the brand new system of analytics and of census for us. So it's just all moving forward. This system is fantastic. It is so very user-friendly, not just for me, but also for the guys that are in the field, to be able to have everything at our fingertips. The whole reason we moved to an AMI meter was so that we could have this information whenever we wanted it and be able to speak to it, to not just ourselves and amongst all of us at Town Hall to keep track of things, but be able to speak very intelligently to everyone here in Landis about their bills and about what their meter readings look like. Taking it one step beyond that, beyond just myself learning it and the guys learning it, has been this next step, which is our launch. I'm really pretty excited about it, to be honest with you. So as the first page in here says to you, what is a customer portal? Well, the customer portal is going to take that next step to make it so that all the information that the residents of Landis would like to know, all of the questions that they have, they're going to have at their fingertips as often as they want it. And it gives us an opportunity to reach out and to speak to them directly in both email format, text format, whatever they're most comfortable with, which is very, very useful for all of us. So if you look at the third page, you're going to see where it says the customer portal is. It's an application that enables your customers to view their own usage set personal alerts around their usage, daily billing cycles, multiple days, vacation alerts. All of this will be at their fingertips, which is where we want all the information to be. It also enables us as a utility to be able to send out notifications, messages to customers very, very quickly and very effectively. The portal makes it so that you can do it via email, via text message, either way. Customers will have an opportunity to engage as often as they want to know what's going on with their own utilities, to be able to observe their own usage and be able to see what that looks like side by side with a couple of different elements, one of which is going to be weather. So weather, utilities, they kind of go hand in hand. If it's cold outside, you're not going to use your pool, you're not going to use your irrigation, so your water usage is going to go down. But your heat might go up if you use electric heat, or if you use a heat pump, and it switches over to heat, or using electric instead of just the Freon that's in it. So all of these things really do go hand in hand. So if the opportunity to be able to see your usage, and right next to it, you'll be able to see the weather and what the temperature is outside. You'll get to honestly see that correlation and how it goes really together. So the neat part is, with the way that we've got it designed, we have these amazing radio frequency meters all over Landis. They send the frequency in, it comes into our database, and this database then spreads out. I'm interactive with it because that's what we do for billing. Customers, on the other hand, will be able to use this particular portal to see all of the information, their current readings, their billing cycles, their usage now, their usage a year ago, and be able to match it up month to month, and the weather, what the weather was like this time last year versus this time this year. As we have certain events come up, we'll be able to push out notifications to our residents to exactly what's going on. Another thing that's going to be really great is, as you know, we're working on enhancing our website for Town of Landis. With that, they're also going to go hand in hand. There's going to be a link right on the customer portal that you'll be able to click, and it'll take you to My Gov Hub to be able to pay your bill. So you'll see your usage, you'll be able to pay your bill. And vice versa. On our website, we'll be able to have a portal or an app where you can click it, and it'll take you right over to the portal. It's going to be a very easy sign-up process. Someone simply logs in, they put in their email, their name, and their account number that's on their bill. After that, they'll only need to use their email and whatever password they choose, and they'll be able to keep up with it, whether they use it on their computer or they use it on their cell phone or their tablet, anything they choose to. This is just another tool. It's not going to take away the paper bill. It's not going to take away the opportunity to speak to me on the phone at any given moment. It's just giving one more step of customer service to be able to offer them to see it tangibly in their hands, what the usage looks like, and what can they do differently to maybe help control what's going on in their own home. It'll also be able to send out alerts. For instance, water. If there's a leak, these systems have a way to trigger an alarm to say you're using more than X amount of gallons per hour. We think you might have a leak. It'll then, if you're signed up on this portal, send an alert to you that says, hey, we're seeing high volume usage on your account. You should check it out, see what's going on. Right now, the guys do their absolute best to keep up with those alerts, but we're doing it only on our side. If given the opportunity and having this portal, well, we already purchased this portal 2 years ago, but to use it hand in hand with the fact that the men and women that work for the town are communicating these leaks, you get to see it, not just hear it. So this is the direction that we're heading in. If you look through, you can see the sign-on page that I was just telling you about. This is also going to be very branded to Landis. It's going to have that symbol right behind you. The new logo will be on there. It's going to have the colors that we've chosen for Landis on there. Everything will be branded to look like what we've chosen for it to look like. So there's going to be no doubt whose portal you're on. It should mirror and mimic what our website will look like. That's my job. My job is to pull together all of that information and hand that over to the company, Census, who's developing this, and make sure it looks exactly the way that we want it to. Going from there, terms and conditions. This is something that Diane and I both thought was important, that people understand that there are terms and conditions to using a website, just like there is in any other website that you log on to. It always tells you what you can and cannot do with the information that you're being provided. So this will mirror pretty much every other municipality that has a website similar to this one. So as you can see, there's pictures of what the registration looks like. I wanted to get you a picture of exactly what the dashboard would look like, but the video wouldn't let me take that picture, so I have to try and get that for you another time. But the specific information, everything about support, bill pay, being able to change out languages, as well as signing in and signing out, this will all be at our customers' fingertips. So support is going to be designed around an email and a phone number that will be provided that will be able to link back to the utility services department so that we can help all of our customers through step for step. And I'd be happy to do that. I'd be happy to spend whatever time I need to spend with anybody that needs a little bit of help to get moved forward and to feel comfortable using this. That's no problem at all. So the last steps is really the launch and making sure that we are ready and we have all the information. I've turned over the checklist that they've asked of me. The last two things I'm waiting for is with our new IT department. So we'll be able to get on board with a specific email and a specific telephone number. Once those are turned in, we'll be ready for launch. So as early as within the next 30 days. Any questions?
I got one. Well understood that this will work with the power
Yes, it
and
will.
water.
That's right.
Yeah, okay. I thought.
Yes.
I thought it was just with water.
No.
But it will be power and water.
Yes, you will actually have in the center of your screen an opportunity to toggle back and forth between your electric and your water.
Okay.
And you'll see your usage on both sides and with the same information.
And that's in real time.
Yeah, well, yes and no. Keep in mind, water meters pull roughly every 4 hours. Electric meters pull a little bit more frequently. Water meters pull a little bit slower, usually because of where they're located. It has to do with if your meter has covered in water, or if it's covered in grass, or it's covered in dirt. So as soon as it hits a signal, it comes on through. But generally, they pull roughly every 4 hours. So as close to what I would say real time as possible is what you're going to be looking at, more so with electric than you will with water.
All right.
But we do pull every 15th of the month. So when we pull those meters over for billing, it's not pulling individual meters. We're pulling the entire system of AMI meters that are out there. And all of them come in at once. And then we run through an exception report to try and hit all of those glitches or anomalies and make sure that everything looks the way it should. Then it goes through a separate system through our billing system, and we get another set of exception reports to make sure, again, that we've taken another look through to make sure there's no problems or concerns.
One of our primary goals with this system is to find if there's a leak as soon as we can. I mean, we have ways we go about it, but if a customer goes an entire month with a leak, if that can be avoided or found much quicker, and with their help, that will happen. And it's going to save our customers a lot of money. It's also going to teach a lot of customers who may not know fully how to use a heat pump system. I mean, I was a grown man. Well, excuse me. I didn't have a heat pump until I was a grown man. So, but it's not uncommon to find people who do not understand. And I think Rebecca even can tell you about customers who've called in, and when she talks through them, has found some that were running their systems on emergency heat 24/7, and that is very, very expensive.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so part of this is education. Part of this is when the system goes, and we can get some how-tos on our website that they can go to help educate people to monitor their own system.
That is absolutely the direction that we would like to go, is to be able to put some for one, there's going to be how-to videos with how to use this website, how to get signed on. But still, I'd be happy to take the time with anybody who needs help to get logged on and get set up. Also, like Mr. Barefoot said, I would really like to get some information out there about how to effectively use some of the different types of energy that we do have, because, you know, to echo him, there are a lot of residents that have called into me that are very upset, very concerned about their high bills, and I try and talk through them and say, okay, let's take a look. How much you used last month? Let's look at what you used this week. Let's look at what you used on Monday. Now that we see what happened on Monday, what do you think is causing that much energy to pull into your home in one day? Because that's an awful lot of energy. So let's go through it and figure it out. Because I don't want to make this complicated. I want you to be happy and understand what you're using and what you're paying for. And I've talked to dozens of people at this point, and they are finding things, whether it's they're not changing out their filters often enough, or they didn't realize they were on emergency heat, or they didn't realize how powerful or how much energy is drawn from those little space heaters. So this will really give them an opportunity to see what's being used and try and be able to pull it under control.
What about somebody that doesn't have an email address or doesn't have access? Is there an option for those people to go into a master deal and type in an address?
Without having access to either having an email, it wouldn't be usable to use the portal, but that's where it's my job. That's when somebody who is not able to use those types of technology are perfectly welcome to give me a call, and I'll work through it with you. That doesn't mean you are restricted to having to use this portal. Like I said, the guys are still on top of it. They watch those meters. They watch what's going on, and they'll hang a door and say, hey, I'm seeing a high water usage in your home. And I'll call them and try and work with them too. So just because they may not be tech savvy and need to go that direction doesn't mean that we're not here to make sure that they're well supported. Any other questions?
You've answered mine in your description and
Yeah.
comments. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you, Rebecca.
I want to say thank you for coming, and we're looking forward to the launch. I hope that citizens come back and watch this. If you are not viewing live, that you would come back and watch and listen to her presentation and the portal when it is launched. We appreciate you coming tonight. Thank you so much.
Have a good night.
All right, at this time, we will have Public Safety Director. And Topper.
All right, good evening. I'd like to give a couple updates on the Public Safety Department. A couple things that happened in the last month, just so everyone's aware. We instituted a safe exchange zone in front of the police department. This area is designated parking in front of the police department. There's signage out there. It's under 24-hour surveillance. There's an emergency phone on the building. These spots are designated for people to come and do exchanges. If they buy something online, they can come to this location, do that in a recorded spot. Likewise, with child custody exchanges, would be suited for that as well. So we're very excited about that. Also in the police department, some citizens may notice we're currently in the test and evaluate phase of a body-worn camera program. We do have some select officers out there wearing one, so we're currently going through that. That's something that we're looking at for feasibility's sake, but they are looking at how that would work for the town, what that program would look like. They're also evaluating a taser. This taser is the newest version. It links to the body cam, so if they were to activate the taser, it automatically activates the body cam. So we're excited for them to be utilizing that equipment and testing it. We currently have some members of the fire department who are at training, some tonight, as a matter of fact, who are going to get their child passenger safety seat technician certification. We will have about 7 folks certified at the end of next month. What this will allow us to do is make this station here, the town hall, station 44, a permanent checking station. So people can go online, make an appointment, they can come here, get their car seats checked for free. It's a great service for the town. It also benefits us as it goes towards ISO points for our fire department. So we're excited to be working to bring that to the town, and of course, anybody can come and utilize that service. And you'd be surprised, I was certified in that program. You'd be surprised how long it takes to realize just how much car seats there are to them and how complicated they can be. So especially new parents or people who don't do that very often, be a very good service. So we're very excited about that. We also had 3 promotions within the departments. We promoted Kevin Young to Assistant Public Safety Director. We had Charles Sheeks promoted from Lieutenant to Captain of the Fire Department. And we also had Dakota Toms promoted to Sergeant just last week. So we've had 3 internal candidates, very well qualified. We went through independent assessment processes with those promotions, and we're excited for them to be in those new positions moving forward. We've also instituted new policies at the police department, kind of echoing what's been said tonight. With the new town website, our plan is to have those policies available online so members of the community can look at what the policies are for the police department and eventually for the fire department. And a lot of your bigger agencies do just that, for the transparency's sake. What is their use of force policy? What does it state? What is their chase policy or pursuit policy? So with the launch of the new website, we intend on putting those policies online for the public to view, as well as hopefully in the near future, presenting to the board and the town a strategic plan of how we intend to move public safety forward in Landis over the next 5 years in our budget cycle. So we're very excited about that. A couple other notes. With those new policies, we're looking at the League, North Carolina League of Municipalities, law enforcement risk review process. We're in the infant stages of that process. Basically, we'll send them our policies. They'll make sure we're meeting best practices. They'll come to our department, they'll interview our officers, they'll look at our equipment and our facilities. And at the end of the day, if we meet their best practices, they will, in a nutshell, accreditate us for meeting those standards. They come and do a presentation. It's an annual or a biannual recertification process. That can potentially reduce insurance premiums for the town since we go through the league for insurance. So we're looking at doing that with the police department, and again, eventually with the fire department. They have a fire risk review process as well. So very excited to get those processes underway. I'd also like to make a note that we are forecasting National Night Out. National Night Out is the first Tuesday of August. It's a great way for the community and citizens to get together. So we're still planning on what that's going to look like this year. We'll see where COVID's at and what our resources are. But I would ask for the citizens to plan on Tuesday, August 3rd for National Night Out. And we'll be putting information out as we go along as far as when and where and what to expect for that process. The only other thing I'd like to address tonight is a presentation. Mayor, if you're available, I'd like to have you join us, and Detective Shane Safford, if he can join us. If I'll stand here so people can hear me at first. I appreciate it. So Detective Sergeant Shane Safford is receiving the Advanced Law Enforcement Certificate tonight. I'll give you a little background information about this. The North Carolina Criminal Justice Education and Training Standards Commission established the Law Enforcement Officers Professional Certificate Program in order to recognize the level of competence and professionalism of law enforcement officers within the state. The program fosters an interest in college education and professional law enforcement training programs and aims to attract highly qualified people into a law enforcement career. Sergeant Safford has over 10-plus years of law enforcement experience, and he's attended over 1,600 hours of professional law enforcement training in addition to basic law enforcement training. Some of his trainings and certifications include an Associates of Applied Science in Criminal Justice. He's a law enforcement general instructor. He's a certified firearms instructor. He also teaches the civilian version of concealed carry classes to the public. He's completed the law enforcement leadership program at Rowan Cabarrus Community College, over 360 hours of training in just that one program. And he has hundreds of hours of specialized training in investigating crimes against children, abuse and neglect, and death investigations. The town of Landis should be very proud of Detective Sergeant Shane Safford and the professionalism and competence he displays and works hard every day. The Advanced Law Enforcement Certificate is not a give-me certificate. It takes many hours of training and education and dedication, and not all officers get that. And so this compliment speaks highly to him and the professionalism that he provides the town. And I'd like to be the first to congratulate you on achieving your Advanced Law Enforcement Certificate. I appreciate it. That's all I have.
Thank Thank you very much. Congrats.
I'll make one comment, and it may not be necessary, but just for clarification. The three promotions were not, none of them were new positions.
hires.
There was a vacant sergeant position and then restructuring of two positions.
Yes. All right, we will go to number 12, Mr. Barefoot.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the board, we have had an offer to purchase a lot on Lynn Avenue. It's a lot, it came before you months and months ago and was withdrawn, or was not acted upon. And the person that's making the offer on this one had previously put in a request to purchase property on Coldwater, and I know it's been some time since that had been closed, but the funds, the funds to purchase that were taken to the attorney's office today. I called the gentleman, I said, you need to do this, because there's some not dispute, but the property didn't perk out but one time, and so he was concerned about that. So that has been taken care of, but the request here is to ask the town to declare this half-acre lot, or .47 acres, at the lower end of Lynn Avenue. It is at the very end of Lynn Avenue. It is a wooded area. It's a low area. It is adjacent to this gentleman's business. It's zoned B3, but I think that's because it was actually attached to a lot that faces on Highway 29, and the gentleman has offered $5,000 for the lot. The lot is appraised much higher, but I honestly can't see for where it is being that being a very accurate appraisal. And of course, if the board decides to move forward and we advertise it, then if they're upset bids, there may be someone willing to pay more. But if not, and you take that action, then you would be selling or declaring it surplus and selling it for $5,000. I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Is there any discussion at this time?
And I will, while you're pondering that, if your intent is to move forward with surplusing it, then I would ask that you approve the resolution that's attached,
Right.
authorizing the advertisement and offer of an upset bid.
All right. Any discussion? Mr. Evercash?
Could we ask him for a little better offer?
You could. I mean, it's your right to. It's your right to
Yeah.
reject the offer.
Aren't you asking for a better offer though when you advertise it for somebody else to bid more than he's bidding? And then if they don't bid more than him, you get rid of it and be done with it?
Yeah. That's generally the way you do it.
Right,
Yes.
that's what I thought.
But I mean, you know, you could you actually turned it down one time before. You have that authority.
Like you said, it's a bad area, it's a low level, I don't see any use for anybody but him.
But to answer your question, you could say, I suppose, we have an attorney here, if they wanted to make a motion that if he raised the bid by X, that you would approve the resolution if it was equal to X?
And from what I understand, if you approve the resolution, and he accepts the bid and raises it, you still have to go through the advertised process and upset bid process.
Could I ask some clarification regarding the statute?
I'm gonna have to ask if Rick's gonna speak, if he can come up to the podium so that they can hear him, please.
Just my question as it relates to the surplus statute is if we, and this is just confirmation from what I believe is going to be your response, but I'd like to hear it again. If we approve consideration of said property in discussion at the offer price of $5,000, do we commit to, after the bidding process, finalizing that surplus at the beginning of this?
Yes.
If so, I would lean one way. If there's an exit strategy upon the upset bids, and then we come back for a final, that's another.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to surplusing it, but that's just the fraction over 25% of the tax value. And it is usable land, even though it is in a low area. I understand why the prospective buyer would want it. So let me go back to my first question.
Yeah.
As I read the statute, is different than your understanding of the statute.
Well, it may or it may not be. I mean, I may be misunderstanding your understanding, so
Sure.
you could be right. Typically, you accept it. If what you're suggesting is, and I'm asking the attorney if this is possible, if the board is not willing to, I mean, if you're going to turn it down because you think it's too low, is whether or not you can make a motion to move forward with surplusing the property if the property owner is willing to pay, instead of $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, or some number. You just make him up the bid now, and of course, if he doesn't want to do it, then it's just, it's the same as if you turned him down. So I think that is a possibility.
Mr. Locklear?
I don't have the statute in front of me, but my recollection is that once you begin the upset process, you're pretty much stuck to it. I mean, if no one upsets it, then my understanding is he gets the property.
Okay, I'll take your advisement. Thank you very much.
That's my understanding. Yeah.
Bob, I do want to read, I mean, if you say out loud, we would be willing to surplus this property if the minimum bid was $8,000, or if that's what your indication is, or whatever that number is.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
I mean, he could come back a month from now, and then you could turn him down and make him come back a month from now, but if he's willing to start it at the $8,000, I don't know why the board shouldn't be allowed to say, subject to that being a minimum of $8,000, we'll approve the resolution. If that's not, I lost my attorney.
He's
That's
right
not
there. He's
possible,
coming
then-
back.
then we
Well,
just-
that's different from what I heard. I mean, what I'm saying is once you declare it surplus, once you advertise it, and you begin the bid process, that's what locks you in.
Right.
But is it okay for the board to say they need X to start the process?
Yeah, but, I mean, they can.
Okay.
They can, and what you'll do is just come back at a later date. This is the same guy that brought in a check today for the $38,000 remaining balance is what I recall.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Mr.
And all we
Akers.
have to get you guys, Amber and Meredith's signature before you leave here tonight.
Okay, we will.
Gotta give Diane a check.
That's the most important part.
Do you have any more questions, Mr. Abercash?
Nice. Just
Mr.
what I-
Stewart.
What I was asking, if, what would the process be if, like you said, you think it's appraised a bit high? I do too. So if we took his offer off the appraisal, see if it'd meet us halfway at $7,000, how do we go get it to that point and move it on now?
You mean 7,000
Yeah.
instead of 5?
Yeah.
think you can make a motion that the board is willing to,
Well, let me ask this. So you're going 7?
Yeah, I mean, you know, like Mr. Barefoot said, and I agree with him, it's appraised a little high, I think, for where it's at, but, you know, everybody wants to negotiate and get all we can.
Alderwoman Sales?
Me, you, anybody else. So deduct his offer from the appraised value and see if he'll meet us halfway at 7.
Okay, so my question is this property he's wanting to buy attached to 133A206? That's also the town owns that piece of property.
it abuts it.
It abuts
If you look at the map,
Right, I am.
the 6 is fronts on 29.
29.
And this would be at the very
Back of that
back of
property.
that, yeah.
So the property on 29 is 1.76 acres. That this acreage is not included in the acreage on 29, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, it's separate.
I mean, you know, you can turn him down and he can come back another month, or you can.
I don't like the offer he's offered.
Okay. Do you have a number? I mean, Daryl's thrown out 7. Ashley, or Mayor Pro Tem Stewart?
At this moment, I would be in agreement with Mr. Overcash of starting at 7, and I would at that point vote yes for consideration for surplus of said inventory.
All right, and Mr. Coyer
Same thing.
I'm in agreement
with 7.
with 7.
Okay. So,
You got-
do I have a motion?
So may I state what I think the motion would be? It would be a
Absolutely, Mr.
motion-
Barefoot.
It would be a motion authorizing the advertisement of an offer to purchase the property as presented, if the offer is $7,000 instead of 5.
Yes.
I make a motion that we consider advertising said property, PIN number 133A058 in the Rowan County Registry, to be made open for an open bid upsetting process, starting at a minimum of $7,000.
I second that.
Any more discussion?
I do have one thing. I don't know if that need to interject this here or not, but I would like for the bill to be paid within 30 days
60
instead
days,
of dragging
30
it out
days,
like
yeah.
it has been.
Or pursuant to the North Carolina General Statute, and I can't remember the statute
Yes.
book and page number.
At this time, I will ask for votes per board member. Mr. Overcash?
Aye.
Alderwoman Sales? Mr. Coyer?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Stewart?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay. We will move to number 13.
So it's a night for audits. And this one is not related at all, except that it is on the finances, to the one that you just heard about from our annual audit firm. We were the lucky winners to be selected out of 19 other, in total 20 small towns in North Carolina were selected by the North Carolina Treasurer's Department and the LGC to be subject to kind of a quick audit for various independent audit firms to come in, take a look at us, write an opinion, and then publish something based on that. It was not nearly as comprehensive as the one that you would go through on an annual basis. There were not any financial statements or anything like that completed. It was more looking at our internal controls, looking at the audit that we had produced, and then looking at the backup for a lot of things. They pulled a lot of information on how we do our accounts payable, that type thing. So we worked with a gentleman named Dean Luby, and I have the information, his extended document, if you'd like to see it. I didn't really think it was necessary to include all of that here. I have it if you'd like to see it. But he came back and said, he told me kind of off the record that he was actually very pleased and could at the same time see changes being made throughout the year, and was pleased with the direction that we were headed. He did come back with a few findings. One of those being that our fiscal year 20 audit was not completed by January 31st, 2021. He gave me an opportunity. We had a form to fill out where we could reply and comment, and he and I both commented that the amended contract that we had with our existing audit firm stated that this was their issue and not ours. So I don't know what we could have done differently there. He talked about the fact that we don't have a written purchasing and financial policy. I have committed to have one of those to you by June 30th, 2022. We have had so much to clean up that, quite honestly, I know we need those policies, but we haven't had time to do it. So we do have that as a goal for this upcoming fiscal year, and we will have that to you. The other thing we intentionally did, and he actually agreed with us, and quite honestly, I wouldn't change it. I was not aware that there is a state statute that says when we do our budget meetings with you, we should put the previous year's actuals in that first column, and then a year to date, and then move from there. We did not include fiscal year ending 2019's numbers in that document, and that's what this is about. I quite honestly thought they would be really confusing. For one thing, we didn't believe that the expenses were being accounted for in the correct line items. So you would have had numbers in different places than they were ending up, and they were going to be for this year. We also felt like that year included some carryover from a former administration that would not be indicative of the direction we were headed. So I didn't think it added value. In fact, I thought it made it confusing. So we did not include those numbers. Apparently we should have, although Mr. Luby did agree that he understood the reason and thought it was of sound logic.
I see that.
Yes. And finally, overall, he said that he thought we were doing a great job, and he did say that on several occasions that he thought we would finish, if they had to rank the towns, that we would be in the top 4. And that, to me, is coming a long way. So I'm actually excited about that. And so I think we will be fine with that state audit. It's my understanding that some of the other towns are struggling. And it's nice to not be on that list of people that are still in that boat. So that's the report from him. And if you want to see the details, I have them.
All right. So we'll move to number 14, Ms. Seaford.
Yes.
Oh,
I just think this speaks
Sorry.
volumes of you,
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
from where we were to where we are now. I mean, I thank you from the bottom of my heart, because I know you have worked long hours. And stuff. I keep this straightened out.
Well,
So
that's
thank
all
you.
right. It's nice to be part of, it's really, we have seen a lot of growth. We've seen a lot of changes and a lot of new folks, and it's exciting to see progress and to see us getting in a better place. As part of that, something else that we didn't know about, and he said, I don't think any of these 20 towns had it. We need a resolution authorizing us to do ACH transactions. And basically that's like when we pay electricities, we don't write them a check. They draft our account for our monthly utility bill. We don't have a lot of those because I don't like to give out that information to very many vendors, but there are a few, the Kannapolis Water, the Sewer Department, those kind of places that we know are the same type entities that we can trust and are large numbers each month. It's easier to just have them draft that. This gives us a resolution that gives us the authority to do that. So I would ask that you consider approving that.
all right. Do we have any questions regarding that? All right. Do I have a motion?
Mayor and Board, I move we approve the resolution authorizing the town to engage in electronic payments as defined by GS 15928, GS 115C441.
I'll second.
No discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. We will move to number 15, Mr. Barefoot.
Yes. Mayor and members of the board, this is a budget amendment necessary to fund a new truck in the Public Safety Department. I know it is new equipment, and I was probably a bit reluctant to begin with, but we do have some funds available in this budget year to make this purchase. If not, it will be asked for in next year's budget. And what we're trying to do is space out these purchases and pay them in cash. As you may recall, last year we talked to you about the fact that some years, a couple of years back, we went out and bought, how many?
11.
11 cars at one time and financed them all. And what we're trying to do is get into mode of pay cash for things that ought to be paid for in cash, and use debt to purchase other things. And this is one of them.
I would also say that the truck is a little bit different mode. It helps support our public safety department because it allows us to carry different types of equipment. So it makes it easier than being in a typical car. And we felt like Director Laschetti would benefit from that.
I'll let members of the board, I'll let Diane tell you about go through the amendments, where the money's coming from.
Okay. And that actually is partially due to the fact that the Public Safety Department really is trying hard to help come up with the revenue to support that. So some of this, we had money left. We were purchasing one vehicle, and that we had some money left over from that. So that, along with some money in our salaries line item, because we have had several positions that have been open for a while this year, there's enough money between those two line items to fund purchasing the additional truck. And that will be one less thing that we'll need to take care of in the upcoming years.
All right, do I have any questions at this time?
Will this vehicle be purchased before June the 30th?
That's the reason for the budget amendment. We actually needed to order it. If we're going to order it, we need to do
Okay.
that probably tomorrow. So,
Okay.
yes, ma'am, it will be.
Any other questions?
What's the total cost for the vehicle?
The total cost for the vehicle is somewhere, there's two different components to it, and one of them, we have enough money in that line item already. The truck itself will be, I think, in the $27,000 range. Is that close? 28,000, and then we have about 5,000 more to put the light package in there. We will be using a radio from an existing car that we've surplused, so we won't have to buy a new radio. But the light package goes in a different line item.
Is this being bought with the state purchase?
Yes, yes, state contract.
Now, will this vehicle be able to be used if you had to take command of a situation? Yeah, if you don't mind. Sorry.
I can speak to that real quick.
Okay.
So the purpose of the truck and the reason to go that route is twofold. One, earlier this year, we surplus the Expedition SUV and also the F-150 pickup truck. So this replaces that pickup truck. It's got many functions: inclement weather, four-wheel drive capability, towing. If we have large pieces of evidence to transport, we can use the truck for that. Likewise, moving towards the public safety model, it allows more storage for fire and police gear. So this will give us two vehicles this year. We only had one allocated. So if we squeeze out the second vehicle, because we're doing quite well in our budget for this year thus far, we don't intend on asking for any vehicles from the police department in this upcoming year budget. And this will allow us to get into that replacement cycle we were speaking of. So that kind of answers your question as far as its functionality and why it would be useful.
So this will be your vehicle to drive?
So we have one already ordered, that was already approved in this current budget. So that one, I guess, would be mine. This one would be for the assistant director.
Oh, okay.
Since we're serving both those roles,
Okay.
chief and assistant chief.
I was gonna say, I thought that, okay, I'm on, okay.
The assistant director being Kevin.
Kevin Young, correct.
So when his charger comes available, will that be a spare or the second spare?
Exactly.
I understand we only have one car now spare.
We have
That's
the-
for reserve or a breakdown.
Exactly.
So when Kevin's car comes available, the blue one.
Right, so
That'll be-
we're filtering the nicer cars, if you will, down, and that's gonna create additional cars for spares to get into that replacement cycle, because what we're gonna have now is 6 Explorers were purchased at one time. Inevitably, they're gonna go out at one time. So if we get 2 this year, skip next year, maybe 1 the following year, whatever the case may be, we get into that replacement cycle. So we intend on filtering those down, and we'll have nicer, more reliable spare cars, less maintenance costs for the upcoming year.
All bought with cash.
No loans, yeah. Any other questions?
Mayor and Board, I move we approve the budget amendment to fund a new truck for the Public Safety Department.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, we will go to number 16.
Number 16 is consider a budget amendment to pay off an interfund loan from the water fund to the sewer fund. This is, I think I talked to you several times about the situation that our sewer fund is in. And part of that, this is not going to help your cash flow problem in that fund, but it will help, as she was explaining to you, your full accrual numbers, because we're going to take debt out of that sewer fund. We've been trying to come up with a way that we could get rid of that debt. Quite honestly, it is a practice that I have not seen, and I talked with Pam, and we had some significant questions as to how it happened in the first place. Funds have an ability to give money to other funds, just like your electric fund gave to the general fund last year and this year. But typically, funds, especially enterprise funds, do not make loans to each other. That is not something that you would typically do. The former, several administrations ago, and that audit firm saw it differently and chose to do that. We have had a lot of questions about it, and I think if we could just make it go away, that would be the best thing we could do. So I spent some time last week trying to figure out a way to make that happen. And we are fortunate in that we were very conservative in our revenue projections for this year because of COVID. We did not know what was going to happen. So we projected one of our largest revenues fairly conservatively in the local government sales tax. As all of you know, people have not stopped spending money. We're just changing where we spend it and how we spend it. So that means that our sales tax is coming in above where we projected it to be. So we can easily and conservatively increase that number by $200,000. Our electricity fees, people are staying at home, so electric bills are kind of up. So we can increase that conservatively by $100,000. We were able to get a sales tax refund from prior years that people had not filed for $30,000 that we can now account for. And that means that we can change, because our sales tax revenue goes into the general fund, we won't need as much money from the electric fund in the general fund. So we can lower the amount that we are sending from the electric fund to the general fund by $200,000. And we are not going to need to spend all of the capital outlay that we have in the electric fund. So if we lower that number by $148,848, that'll still leave us a cushion in there of $50,000. Part of the reason we had that capital outlay so high in the electric fund was in case we had a major emergency. And so far, we're getting to the fourth quarter of the year. We haven't had that, and this still gives us a little bit of room. We have bought all the equipment that we had in there, so this would still give us a little bit of cushion in there should we have something go wrong. And that would allow us to transfer to the sewer fund $478,848 to then be paid to the water fund to pay off that debt. So that the only debt left in the sewer fund would be the USDA loan. And that, I think, will get us in a better position from a financial perspective, get fewer questions from the auditor next year, and hopefully make the LGC happy as well.
All right, do we have any discussion, any questions?
It does not change your bottom line, so your total budget across all funds it's not like we're using your fund balance or we're using your contingency. It's not doing any of that.
Let's make one comment. That $30,000 on the sales tax refund, that's just part of the money that Pam, very early on, we mentioned that, how many years back? 3 years?
Yeah, they let us go back for
3 years, we weren't filing for refund for sales tax. When we buy anything, we pay sales tax. We can get it back in refund, but for 3 years it was not done. So we got that, and going forward, we are making those requests for refunds.
All right.
Mayor and Board, I move we approve the budget amendment to pay off the interfund loan from water fund to the sewer fund.
I second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, Ms. Seifert?
So tonight's financial reports, I think you probably had enough numbers for the evening. So I gave you the reports that you typically receive from me. The actual numbers in your schedules that you see are preliminary. We have not balanced the bank statement yet, but they shouldn't change materially through February. And your cash balances as of January 31st. So take a look at those. We'll be looking at these coming up in budget workshops and that type thing. So I didn't want to take your time tonight to go into the detail that I typically do. But if you have any questions, once you review them, let me know. I'll be glad to talk to you about them.
All right. We'll move to Mr. Barefoot if there's no questions for Ms. Seifert.
I don't have a written report, and I apologize for that because there's plenty of things for me to report. And I'll just briefly comment on the audit. You've got to be pleased with what you heard from the auditor tonight. And she praised Diane and Pam and others, and it is deserving. I mean, that's the kind of job that's been done this past year. I gave you earlier a copy of the surplus vehicles, wasn't all vehicles, equipment, and that's up to $27,000, and that doesn't include the motorcycle and another car that's out there. So we've got some more coming in.
And they still haven't been sold correct?
Pardon?
They haven't been sold?
No, those two haven't. And when we pulled the electric motorcycle, it was up to over $5,000. So hopefully it'll be more than that going forward. And we've got some other things. I don't want to say we're going to put junk on there, but there's some things laying around that need to go. So. VC3, we had an hour and change today when the phones were problematic. We did have some connections to the phones through Spectrum, but we are working in earnest to get our internet changed over to VC3, and they've been in here the last couple of weeks working, and so we're working diligently on that. Code enforcement, I know you all are getting questions and calls. One in particular is on the 600 block of West Ryder. I've talked to John Gannis. I'm actually going to ask him to come next week, I'll be announcing in a few minutes the work session we're going to have. And if possible, I'm going to have him come. But he is sending out letters. It does take time. You have to give property owners time to do certain things. The one on West Ryder, there's no power to it. There's no, the power's been shut off for 6 months, or at least close to 6 months. And so it is now a clean up the yard, and letters have been sent out to that effect. And the next step is to go in and deem the house unlivable, and he's working on that. And other issues you all have forwarded to me from citizens, he's looking at those and maybe can give you a little better report himself in person, hopefully next week. Passive Park, I apologize, I was going to put that on the agenda and I failed to do so. I am pleased that with the parcel that was sold that our attorney spoke to, that he now has those funds. We have $251,479.34 in the Passive Park Fund. And that is money from the sale of the Lynn property restricted for that use. So hopefully going forward, if the board would just begin to have discussions on how we can move forward on Passive Park. And maybe we can talk about that in the retreat next week. Website development, I've got Amber working diligently on that. And again, we're working through Electricities. They are providing their knowledge to help us do that. I think we said it'd be a 4 or 5, maybe even 6 months. But we want your
6 to 8 months.
Well, that's just a little extra. 6 to 8 months. But I do believe you'll have a product, and the citizens have a product that we can be proud of. I want to compliment Rebecca. I think what you heard tonight is an indication of some very positive things happening in our utility department, and I'm really proud of that. I have asked each of you individually to agree to meet next Monday at 3 o'clock for a 2.5 or 3 hour session. That would be I still like to use the word initial retreat. We will film it in a budget workshop, early budget workshop, because time is passing towards when we're required to have a budget for you to consider. I would ask whoever wants to make the motion to recess, to make that motion to recess until 3 o'clock p.m. on March 15th here in the boardroom for the purpose of conducting a retreat and workshop of the board, budget workshop of the board, and to go into closed session under 143-318.11, paren A, paren 3, paren 6.
Can you repeat those numbers, 143?
Is about that?
No, I just want you to be aware that there might be a lot of people up here when they come in.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. It's General Statute 143-318.11, paren small a, paren 3, paren 6.
All right. Is that all you have for your manager report?
That is it.
We appreciate it. At this time, we will have board comments. We'll start with Mr. Coyer,
I have done.
Mr. Overcash.
Well, I will say, I'm really, really pleased with what all's been going on, just like the other people said tonight. This town's come a long way, and it's been a hard trip, but y'all are doing the job.
Thank you.
And I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
I couldn't have done it. I flunked accounting.
Mr.
And the other courses.
Mr. Overcash?
I'll echo a little bit of what Tony said, not all of it. But I would like to say thanks to the staff. And this portal thing, that's going to be exciting. I know Kannapolis has got one. They've had one for years. We were supposed to have one several years ago. Was asked about it. I asked it one time, and nobody had an answer to it. But anyway, it's a good thing. We get calls on some of our houses from the city will call us. Hey, you got water running. They don't do their power deal, but it's going to be exciting. People can look at their phone. They can see if their toilet ran at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. If they're out of town, they can watch it and see what's happening. It's going to be good. A lot of exciting things.
Ms. Sells?
I'd like to remind the citizens that the cutoff day for your bill is the 15th. As soon as they process the box in the morning, they will start cutoff. Please try to pay your bill on time. If you call up here and the phones ring, the staff's working. They're just on other lines. You're going to have to be patient. We are trying to get a new phone system in here, but we don't have it yet. But pay your bill before the 15th, and you won't have to come up here and stand or call.
No comment.
All right. At this time, we will ask for an adjournment. I do not have anything to say other than happy Monday and welcome to our 6 o'clock meeting. We enjoy getting out of here before 9 or 10 o'clock, so we enjoy that 6 o'clock. If I can have, yeah, we're going to recess. Thanks.
Mayor and Board, I make a motion that we recess until next Monday, March 15th at 3 p.m. here in the board chambers for the purpose of conducting a budget retreat, early budget workshop pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143, 318, 11, 3A, and 6.
I'll second.
Have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is recessed.
Good evening.